Outwitting the Devil, The Secret to Freedom and Success by Napoleon Hill. Picture this. You've just finished writing a book that you believe could change the world. But instead of celebrating, your own family locks it in a vault and throws away the key. For 70 years, your manuscript sits in darkness while wars rage, societies transform, and generations come and go. Sounds like the plot of a thriller, right? Except this actually happened. This is the real story behind Outwitting the Devil, penned in 1938 by Napoleon Hill, the mastermind behind Think and Grow Rich, a book that's minted millionaires and sold over 100 million copies. After that massive success, Hill believed his next work would be even more important. Instead, it disappeared. His family was terrified of how the world would react to what he'd written, so they buried it through World War II, through disco, through the rise of the Internet, and into the 21st century. What could possibly be that explosive? Here's the twist. The entire book reads like an interrogation with the devil himself. Not some cartoon villain with a pitchfork, but the personification of every limiting belief, every paralyzing fear, and every excuse that keeps us stuck. In this wild confession, the devil spills his secrets about how he traps 98% of humanity in lives of quiet desperation. Today, we're cracking open that vault. We're diving into secrets considered too radical for the 1930s, but might be exactly what we need right now. By the time we're done, you'll understand the invisible chains of fear and procrastination that have been quietly running your life. And more importantly, you'll discover the 7 keys Napoleon Hill unearthed to break free and finally live on your own terms. This isn't just a recap of a book, it's your jailbreak. Before Napoleon Hill could teach anyone about winning, he had to master the art of losing spectacularly. His story kicks off with almost ridiculous good fortune. As a hungry young journalist, he scored an interview with Andrew Carnegie, literally the wealthiest human on the planet. Carnegie spotted something special in this ambitious kid and threw down a challenge that would consume the next 2 decades of Hill's life. Study the most successful people in the world without getting paid a dime, then figure out the formula for achievement. Carnegie handed over his little black book, and Hill spent the next 20 years picking the brains of over 500 icons, including Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and John D. Rockefeller. The result? Think and Grow Rich, a book that would transform millions of lives. Cue the confetti and happy ending, right? Not even close. In the years after Hill's life became a spectacular train wreck, he bounced from one business venture to another like a pinball. He'd build a fortune with a magazine, then abandon it. He'd rake in the modern equivalent of millions training salespeople, then quit because something felt hollow inside. His friends thought he'd lost his mind. Honestly, he was starting to wonder if they were right. Then came 1923. Hill found himself stranded in Columbus, Ohio, broke, alone, and completely lost. The man writing the playbook on success had become the poster child for failure. He knew all 17 principles of achievement by heart, but somehow couldn't use them to save himself from drowning. This is where the real story begins. Because sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can finally look up. Hill was consumed by doubt and paralyzed by indecision. For months, he just drifted. And drifting, as he was about to discover, is where the devil does his best work. One freezing afternoon, overwhelmed and desperate, Hill started walking. No destination, just movement. Hours later, his feet suddenly stopped, as if someone had hit pause on his life. The world dimmed. A vibrating energy filled the air. Then an eerie calm washed over him. A crystal-clear command echoed in his mind. The time has come for you to complete the philosophy of achievement. Go home and start writing. In that electric moment, Hill realized he'd been running from his real purpose. He'd been chasing money and status while ignoring his true calling. He called this awakening the discovery of his other self, the fearless, purpose-driven part of him that had been buried under layers of doubt. This experience lit the fuse for Outwitting the Devil. Hill realized he'd spent most of his life controlled by his quote, first self, driven by fear and uncertainty. His other self operated from faith and clarity. These two forces, he concluded, battle for control inside every single one of us. The rest of the book unfolds as a gripping interrogation. Hill, now channeling his other self, summons the devil and forces him to confess his secrets. This isn't some religious sermon, it's psychological warfare. The devil represents the destructive force inside our own minds that feeds on our ignorance. So what's in the devil's toolkit? Hill makes him spill everything. The devil's favorite weapon? The habit of drifting. A drifter, the devil admits with obvious pleasure, is someone who lets me do all their thinking for them. They'd rather I occupy their mind than go through the trouble of using it themselves. Sound familiar? Just floating through life, accepting whatever comes your way, never really deciding what you want? That's not neutral territory, it's active surrender. When you don't use your brain, you create a vacuum, and the devil gleefully explains, I just move in and fill that empty space with negative thoughts. Drifting isn't limited to your career. We drift through school without purpose, stumble into whatever job appears first, slide into relationships without intention, and fall into terrible health habits because it's easier than being deliberate. Procrastination, laziness, indifference, these are all symptoms of drifting. And once drifting becomes your default, the devil deploys his second devastating weapon. It's called hypnotic rhythm, and it's a force of nature that can either liberate you or imprison you permanently. Hypnotic rhythm is nature's way of making your habits permanent. Think about learning an instrument. At first, every note requires conscious effort. It's awkward and frustrating. But through repetition, the melody becomes automatic. Eventually, you're playing without thinking. The habit has been hardwired. Hypnotic rhythm does the same thing with your thoughts. Whatever you repeat consistently eventually becomes a rhythm that nature takes over and makes permanent. It becomes a whirlpool. You can float aimlessly in a river, but once you're caught in a whirlpool, you're trapped in an endless cycle with no easy escape. This is the devil's masterstroke. He gets you drifting, thinking negative thoughts of fear and aimlessness. You repeat these patterns day after day. Then hypnotic rhythm kicks in, cementing those habits into your identity. Your negative mindset becomes your permanent reality. The devil brags about this with disturbing pride. Drifting is how I claim their souls even after their bodies give out. It's a chilling idea that a life without clear purpose leads to a kind of spiritual extinction. So how does the devil trick us into drifting in the first place? He bribes us with our own desires. His greatest hits include the lust for money, vanity, greed, and the obsession with getting something for nothing. But his ultimate weapon is fear. The devil confesses he plants 6 core fears in human minds. 1. The fear of poverty. 2. The fear of criticism. 3. The fear of illness. 4. The fear of losing love. 5. The fear of aging. 6. And the big one, the fear of death. He chuckles darkly. Fear of something that doesn't even exist works just as well as fear of something real. He creates a living hell on earth by trapping us inside our own terrified thoughts. Even more disturbing, he reveals his greatest allies are often parents, teachers, and religious leaders. Not because they're evil, but because they're already victims of his system. Parents unconsciously pass their fears to their children. Schools teach kids what to think instead of how to think, rewarding memorization over independent thought. Religious authorities sometimes use the fear of damnation as a control mechanism, which the devil admits is music to his ears. As long as people fear something, I've got them right where I want them. At this point, things look pretty grim. If 98% of people are drifters, trapped by fear and locked down by hypnotic rhythm, is there any hope at all? Absolutely. And this is where the book shifts from horror story to battle manual. Hill forces the devil to reveal 7 principles anyone can use to break free and reclaim their life. These are your weapons for outwitting the devil. Principle 1. Definiteness of purpose. This is your foundation. The devil reluctantly admits, any person who can be definite in their aims and plans can make life deliver whatever they want. Definiteness of purpose is kryptonite to drifting. When you know exactly what you want, your mind becomes a fortress the devil can't penetrate. A definite purpose works like a compass. Sure, you'll face storms and detours, but you always know which direction is north. The devil explains that people with definite purpose see the difference between temporary setbacks and actual failure. When their plans don't work, they create new plans without ever abandoning their ultimate purpose. A mediocre plan executed with definiteness beats a brilliant plan executed with hesitation every single time. Principle 2. Self-discipline. Once you have your purpose, you need the discipline to pursue it. The devil reveals the foundation of self-discipline rests on mastering 3 basic appetites. 1. Food, specifically overeating and poor nutrition that fog your thinking. 2. Sex, the undisciplined expression of it, which drains your creative energy. 3. Loose opinions, the habit of talking too much and guessing instead of actually thinking. Hill's perspective here is fascinating. He argues that sexual energy, when controlled and channeled, becomes your most powerful creative force. All great leaders have high sex drives, but they redirect that energy into their work, giving them charisma, drive, and imagination. Meanwhile, overindulgence in food, especially junk food, literally poisons your body and makes your brain sluggish and irritable, creating perfect conditions for drifting. And the habit of spouting opinions without facts signals vanity and ego. Wise people listen far more than they speak, collecting knowledge instead of broadcasting ignorance. Principle 3. Learning from adversity. This is where drifters and non-drifters take completely different paths. The drifter hits a wall and quits. The non-drifter hits the same wall, views it as temporary, and searches for the lesson. The devil hates this principle with a passion. He grudgingly confesses, every adversity carries the seed of an equivalent benefit. Failure isn't real until you accept it as permanent. It's just a circumstance, a state of mind. Beyond that, adversity is actually nature's way of disrupting your negative habits. It's a shock that forces you to change direction, to think differently, to tap into your other self. The devil admits that failure often works in your favor because it can shatter the grip of hypnotic rhythm and free your mind for a fresh start. Success, Hill writes, is usually just one step beyond the point where most people quit. Principle 4. Controlling your environment and associations. All people, the devil reveals, absorb the thought habits of those they spend time with, whether they realize it or not. Your environment includes all the forces that influence you, but your relationships are the most powerful part. If you surround yourself with negative, fearful drifters, hypnotic rhythm will force you to become like them. There's no escaping it. That's why successful people are incredibly selective about their inner circle, especially their life partner and closest colleagues. They surround themselves with positive, harmonious people who share their definiteness of purpose. This is the essence of the mastermind principle, a supportive alliance working toward common goals. Drifters let anyone into their life. Non-drifters guard their associations like treasure. Principle 5. Time. Time is a double-edged sword. It's the force that solidifies your habits through hypnotic rhythm. If your dominant thoughts are negative, time becomes your enemy, weaving those thoughts into a permanent pattern of failure. But if your dominant thoughts are positive, time becomes your greatest ally, crystallizing your positive habits and manifesting your purpose into reality. Beyond that, time is the ingredient that transforms knowledge into wisdom. Knowledge is just accumulated facts. Wisdom is knowing how to use those facts harmoniously to achieve your goals. Hill notes that most people don't acquire real wisdom until after 40. Before that, they're too busy collecting information. It's through years of experience, especially through adversity and failure, that we learn to apply knowledge effectively. Principle 6. Harmony. This principle means achieving alignment between your spiritual, mental, and physical environments. It means acting with definiteness of purpose to become the dominant force in your own life. Nature forces everything within an environment to harmonize. A group of prisoners will synchronize around negativity and resentment. A group of entrepreneurs will synchronize around ambition and possibility. The principle of harmony demands that you either master your environment or your environment will master you. There's no middle ground. To achieve harmony, you must align your thoughts, actions, and relationships with your definite purpose. Principle 7. Caution. The final principle is caution. Next to drifting, the devil warns, the most dangerous human trait is lack of caution. The drifter acts impulsively and thinks later, if at all. He jumps into jobs, relationships, and business deals without a plan. The non-drifter exercises caution. He thinks through his plans before taking action. He anticipates obstacles and prepares for them. He takes nothing for granted. Hill clarifies that caution isn't the same as fear. Fear paralyzes you. Caution empowers you to move forward intelligently. It's the habit of thinking before acting, of creating a definite plan and executing it with precision. And there you have it, the 7 principles to outwit the negative forces in your life. This entire book is a deep dive into human psychology. The devil Hill interrogates isn't some external monster. He's the shadow side of our own consciousness, the voice of fear, the pull of procrastination, the seduction of mediocrity. He's the drifter inside all of us. Hill's message, hidden for 70 years, is that this force only has power when we remain ignorant of it. The moment we become aware of its tricks, we can fight back. By defining our purpose, mastering ourselves, learning from setbacks, controlling our environment, using time wisely, living in harmony, and acting with caution, we flip hypnotic rhythm in our favor. We stop drifting and start directing. We silence the voice of fear and awaken our fearless other self. In the end, freedom isn't given to us. It's something we must claim by taking absolute control of the one thing we truly own, our own thoughts. As we wrap up this journey into Outwitting the Devil, it's impossible not to feel both urgency and hope. When Napoleon Hill wrote this in 1938, the world was falling apart. The Great Depression had devastated economies, and war was brewing in Europe. Hill witnessed a world paralyzed by fear, indecision, and collective drifting, a world where the devil, as he called it, was clearly winning. What's striking, and maybe a bit unsettling, is how perfectly this message fits our modern world. We live in the golden age of distraction. The drifting Hill described has gone nuclear. we can drift for hours through social media, news alerts, and endless entertainment. Fear is broadcast 24/7 by a media ecosystem that profits from crisis. And the pressure to conform, to follow the herd instead of thinking independently, has never been stronger. The brilliance of this book is its central metaphor. By personifying our inner demons as the devil, Hill makes the enemy tangible. It's not just vague anxiety or bad habits anymore. It's a cunning adversary with specific tactics. And once you know your enemy's playbook, you can finally start winning. For me, the most powerful concept is hypnotic rhythm. It's both beautiful and terrifying. The idea that nature itself will take your most repeated thoughts and actions and make them your permanent reality. It explains why breaking bad habits feels impossible and why good habits, once established, feel effortless. It's a law as real as gravity. You can either let it drag you down or harness its momentum to soar. The choice is entirely yours. You decide which thoughts to repeat. You decide whether to drift or set a definite purpose. This book is the ultimate manifesto of personal responsibility. It strips away every excuse and tells us that our failures aren't final, our circumstances aren't permanent, and our fears aren't real unless we feed them. So how can you start applying these ideas right now? Let's keep it simple. Here are 3 actions you can take today. 1. Define one thing. You don't need a massive life plan. Just pick one definite purpose for the next 90 days. What's the single most important thing you want to accomplish? Write it down. Make it crystal clear. This simple act of definiteness is your first step toward stopping the drift. 2. Audit your inner circle. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they lifting you up or dragging you down? Are their thoughts primarily positive or negative? You don't need to cut anyone out, but consciously choose to spend more time with people who inspire you and less with those who drain you. Your environment is shaping you every moment. It's time to shape your environment. 3. Reframe your next setback. The next time something goes wrong, you get rejected, a plan fails, you face disappointment, pause before reacting. Ask yourself Hill's question: what's the seed of equivalent advantage in this situation? Hunt for the lesson. What did this experience force you to learn? What new path has it opened? This habit will gradually transform you from someone who fears failure into someone who learns from it. That's our deep dive into Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. We've explored the core concepts, but let's be honest, a summary, no matter how thorough, is just a map. The real treasure comes from making the journey yourself. The true power of this book lies in how Hill's words challenge you, provoke you, and force you to examine your life with brutal honesty. This summary is your starting point, a guide to help you decide if this journey calls to you. If anything we've discussed today resonated, if you recognized yourself in the devil's confessions, then grab a copy and experience it firsthand. Reading it isn't just about gaining information. It's an experience that could fundamentally shift how you see yourself and your possibilities. The link to the book is in the description. If you found this exploration valuable, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our next deep dive into another transformative book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Let's keep outwitting our own devils and growing together.